We have Dr. Sebastian Gorka, the Deputy Assistant to President of the United States, Donald Trump, and also one of the most articulate and enthusiastic defenders of the President of the United States. How are you doing? It's good to see you. We've never met.
It's wonderful to find. It's wonderful to finally electronically meet the great Clavanator.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate knowing that at least somebody in the White House is listening so that we can set everybody straight over there. Now, we've been watching this North Korea thing, and I think that the press has reached a level of peak hysteria they reach a level of peak hysteria over everything the president does. But you yourself have compared this to the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I remember that. That's not a good thing. That was a very near miss. Do you really think things have ramped up that far?
Look, I like to use a quote from a Holocaust survivor. I used to teach, before I came to government, I used to teach our military and law enforcement about how the jihadis think. I use a quote from a Holocaust survivor who was asked after his whole family was killed in the death camps during World War II. Somebody asked him a really facile question. So what's your take home from your experience? What's the big so what of the Holocaust? And this 80-year-old man said, oh, that's easy. When a group of individuals repeatedly says they want to kill you, sooner or later, you should take it seriously. And whether it's Nazis, whether it's the Soviet Union with 20,000 plus nuclear warheads, or whether it's the hermit regime that is constantly saying that they are acquiring these weapons to use them against us and now says they're going to actually bomb Guam, at what point do you say, basta? Enough is enough, and say diplomacy and more importantly, the attitude of 1938 Munich, appeasement does not bring what you expect it to bring when you're dealing with dictators. So I think the analogy stands. Andrew.
So John Bolton says basically we're going to have to choose between military action now and living with a nuclear North Korea. Are you convinced that that's where we are, those are the choices we have?
I think the choice is very, very much the decision. There's a decision tree moment right now, whether we go left or right. And the decision tree branches in Pyongyang. It is up to North Korea. Rex Tillerson has said there is a very easy signal you can give. He gave it 3 days ago. He said, if you stop ballistic missile testing, if you swear you're not going to do illegal ballistic missile testing, you will understand what happened at the UN Security Council on Saturday when everybody, including your rich uncle China, said no more, no more. They have no friends. They've got no friends left. Russia voted with. Think about all the insanity of the Russia collusion delusion, the Russian concussion, right? They voted with us to stop this. So did China. The ball is very much in North Korea's court right now.
So the New York Times ran a piece. I mean, they have been one of the most hysterical venues for reading about the administration. And they ran a piece saying basically that the administration is at odds with itself, that everybody is taking a different tack. The funny thing is, it doesn't seem that way to me. I mean, it seems like there's a little good cop, bad cop going on, but everybody seems to be saying pretty much the same thing, though Donald Trump uses Donald Trumpian language. They all seem to be saying the same thing. That's my impression. Is that what's going on?
What is it that you usually call the New York Times? They used to be newspaper.
Former newspaper, yeah.
The former newspaper. How is it that the Grey Lady doesn't understand that the Secretary is a diplomat, that the Secretary of War runs the military machine, and that the president is the commander-in-chief? I mean, Rex Tillerson isn't going to say bomb anywhere because he's a diplomat, and Secretary Magdog Mattis isn't going to be talking about nice meetings in Vienna at swanky hotels to do diplomacy. So, this is how a government works. Rex has the mandate for diplomacy, and when he said yesterday, or was it the day before, the president used the language he used. Why? Because the diplomatic language has not brought the results we expected. So when he says fire and fury, that's the commander-in-chief's right to say that. The man who's going to do the mechanics of any military response, if there is one, is the Secretary of Defense. And the man that does the diplomacy is Secretary Tillerson. That the New York Times doesn't understand the division of labor in a modern nation is appalling. And you have to laugh, because if you don't laugh, you cry, right?
It is absurd. It is truly absurd. Let's talk a little bit about Russia. I mean, I know this obviously gets up the president's nose. Now there's a word that Paul Manafort's house was raided by the FBI, which does seem to ramp up the Mueller investigation. I mean, when you raid a house, you have to have probable cause that a crime has been committed. It means that when they raid it, instead of just coming over and executing a search warrant, it means that they probably have a suspicion that he will get rid of information. Andrew Napolitano, the legal guy on Fox, was saying this means that Mueller is trying to turn Manafort and move up the ladder in classic FBI style. Does this bother? I mean, is this agitated people in the White House?
No, it's what happens in the West Wing, what happens in the Eisenhower building is not what the New York Times, CNN, Politico, or Huffington Post wants you to believe. The idea that we run around with our hair in fire saying, oh no, Mueller's done this, oh no, grand jury has been impaneled. The fact is the president has been clear. Jared Kushner has been clear. We have nothing to hide. This administration has. We are the toughest administration on Russia in 8 years. Let's just think about what we've done with sanctions, what we've done with Syria, what we've done with Crimea, what we've done with fracking alone. I mean, this is the ultimate, you talk about this on your podcast all the time. My friend Chris Plant, I listen to 2 podcasts. It's you and Chris Plant here in D.C. Chris has a great phrase. For the left, reality is optional. they live in an alternate universe.
No,
right? It's an alternate universe. We have the stock market breaking its 27th record. We have a 73% drop in illegal migration. We've revitalized NATO, and Mosul has been liberated. When the BBC asks me to come and talk about Anthony Scaramucci, I say, no, I'm not going to, because that's not news. Let's talk about ISIS. Let's talk about the economy. That's what Americans want to talk about, and that's why they listen to your show.
Well, thank you. If indeed, I hope they are, and I think. But the thing about Anthony Scaramucci and the chaos and the tweets. I shouldn't call it chaos. The staff changes in the White House and the tweets from the president, because he does seem to get angry about the Russian investigation. And as I've said on the air numerous times, I don't blame him. But it does seem to distract from the legislative agenda. If there is one place where the administration seems not to be able to get things going, it is wrangling the cats in Congress. I mean, there was just this exchange between the president and Mitch McConnell, where Mitch McConnell says his expectations are too high, and Donald Trump said, yeah, well, you've been promising for 7 years to do this. But one of the things that did bother me was that some of this stuff in the White House was going on while they were debating the health care bill. And I wanted to see Donald Trump, who really is he's very persuasive when he pays attention and when he focuses on this. I wanted to see Trump kicking butt in the Senate and getting those guys in line. Is there any truth to the idea that there is distraction in the White House that keeps the legislative agenda from getting through?
Look at the track record. So let's get rid of the miasma of fake news and the fake news industrial complex. Look at the number, just the number of executive orders and legislative initiatives this president has brought. He's blown Obama's record out of the water by factors, not by percentages, but factors. So no, there is no truth. And I especially understand the basis concern with Obamacare and et cetera. But the president made a strategic decision, and it's a pro-democracy one. So let's stop for a second. He said, remember, this is the man who is going to wipe out democracy, according to the left. Yeah. He said, we have separation of powers, we have checks and balances. And he said, I need to make America safe, so I'm going to use executive orders to bring my immigration measures to book. I'm going to unleash our military, not to nibble at the edges of ISIS, but to annihilate them. I'm going to do the stuff the executive is good at. Now, Obamacare, the GOP has been talking about replace or repeal for 7 years. And the president made a strategic decision. Let's allow Capitol Hill to follow through on 7 years of promises. Maybe it was a mistake to make that decision and say, okay, show us what you can do, because clearly they failed. It's not our intent to do everything, because there's a reason we have a Congress. There's a reason there's a House of Representatives and a Senate. So it's actually respect for the protocols and the traditions that made the president say, okay, Obamacare, show us what you can do, Mitch McConnell. And this is where we are today.
Let me ask, I have one more question and I'll let you go. I have to ask about this Wall Street Journal piece yesterday that basically went after Steve Bannon, who is obviously Satan in the minds of the press. And it's funny, you know, I know a lot of people who really dislike Steve Bannon. I knew Steve when he was a Hollywood guy. He was never anything but gracious and polite to me. That was my entire experience of him. But I do know a lot of people that I trust and love who've had terrible run-ins with him. So the Wall Street Journal says that Steve Bannon and his alt-right minions are basically waging war against McMaster and go after anybody who is, in a different faction. Fantasy or reality?
Bogus. Totally bogus. I mean, really. You know what this is? It's lazy journalism. Instead of actually finding out what's going on, you exploit the tropes that people expect. There's got to be the Goldman Sachs globalists vying for influence against the Pepe the Frog nationalists. It's just lazy. It's just hackneyed. I thought as the son of immigrants, as the son of a man who escaped from a communist political prison, I thought I was adequately cynical about the media. I had no idea. No idea. Yeah. I mean, when I came in January the 20th, I swear to you, I got a Bible here, okay? I'm going to swear on my Bible, okay? 80 to 90% of the stories I read in the mainstream media about the West Wing have nothing to do with reality. Not only that, they are 180 degrees out of whack with reality. I just read an article yesterday that I am on the short list to be Strategic Communications Director of the White House. False, not true. This is just
80%, huh?
I can't explain. 80%. I've come in and I've read articles. I was in the room when the issue was being debated 36 hours beforehand, and the story is diametrically opposed to what was happening in the building at the time. It's lazy journalism. It's cheap. It's lazy. It's saddening. They have a psychological block with November the 8th. They can't get over the fact the New York Times said 92% victory for Hillary on the day of the election. What did the Huffington Post say? 98%. Guys, you're bankrupt. You're morally, ethically, and technically bankrupt.
Well, tell Steve if he ever wants to come on. We would love to have him on the show to talk to him. Thank you very much. You are really one of the president's most eloquent defenders. He's lucky to have you. Dr. Sebastian Gorka, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
It's just an accident. Just keep doing what you do. Thanks, Drew.
Thanks a lot. Really interesting. I mean, I have to say, like, if you're the president of the United States, you want that guy talking for you, because he really does defend him and makes a case. All right. So, well, that was a really interesting interview. And I mean, I think, obviously he means to come on and defend his chief, and he does it with real eloquence. He's very well spoken in all this. But swearing on a Bible that 80% of what you read in the press is not true. And, I try not to bring a lot of this stuff on. I look very carefully at where the sources are. They say sources close to this one, sources close to that one. Because remember, every source, just like every person, has a motive, is trying to sell a certain bill of goods. So when you're looking at an anonymous source story, you have no way to judge where that guy is coming from, where that source material is coming from. And I know there are great reporters out there really are, but some of this stuff, if you're in the White House and you hate Bannon and you're on the other side, you might be feeding them one side of the story. If you like Bannon, you might be feeding them the other side of the story. So you got Dr. Gorka's take on it, and I thought he was really interesting on North Korea. I mean, they really are taking a strong line.